So we're starting. Hello, everyone. My name is Tariel. Really happy to see you today. And this is the first ever Slack Community Baku event. And I just want to introduce myself firstly. You all know me because I'm in this field for the last 3 years. So I'm busy with these community things and with startup ecosystem building. And I'm happy that now we have Slack community events in Azerbaijan as well. So I don't want to take your time and want to introduce our speaker. Our first speaker, first ever speaker is Nif Gore. Nif Gore is a Slack community manager at Slack, and today she will talk about the remote work during the pandemic. I think this is very important topic, and the topic that really will solve some of your problems, even if you are a startup or you are a company. And today's life hacks, I think the life hacks that Nif will introduce you will help you for the future work. Hi, Nif, how are you?
Morning, everyone. Let me just start sharing my screen so that way before the screen goes into presentation mode
great.
that I know people can see. So let's see. Oh, okay. So I've gotten a message saying host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Just a
if
second.
You could. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, guys, while Terry's working on that, I'll just introduce myself to you. So I'm Neve and I am based in Dublin, Ireland. My background picture is from our National History Museum, where I wish I was working from, but I am very much working from my bedroom. So let me see if I can start sharing now. And let's see. Yeah, here we go. Okay, share, and hopefully you give me a thumbs up, Terry, if you can see my screen okay. All good? Yeah, perfect. Then I'll put this in presentation mode. Let's see. And present. So hopefully now this is in full screen and you guys are able to see everything. So I'm from the Slack platform community. I'm a EMEA community manager and I joined Slack in roughly, I think it was June. It's so hard to be clear on what time was when now because some things seem very, very quickly and other things seem really, really slowly. But that's me based, and as I said, in Dublin. So who is the community team? Well, thus far we are but two people. There's my colleague, Elizabeth Kinsey. She's also my manager and she created the Slack platform community team. And that was created about 2 years ago. And then there's myself waving at you back when we could go outside. And I, as I said, joined from last June, and I joined from a company called Asana. So I just have a bit of knowledge, but when it comes to project management software too, if that ever has helped anyone. So what are the purposes for community? So we're trying to build spaces and experiences. We're very accepting of others and we want to celebrate who people can become. Basically, with our platform community, the idea isn't that it's just solely focused on platform and people building on it. It's the idea of building each other's knowledge and experience and awareness and ability. And it's also just a hub of where our most passionate users can collaborate and connect together. So we don't have like any set themes. We've lots of different shared channels, which I can show you shortly. But the idea being, and I think for everybody who's working remotely now, is to use Slack or any of your communication tools. I don't want to run down any competitor tool either, but to use any of these communication tools as being your virtual office. As we know, I don't know about for you, but as I said to you guys at the start, I joined Slack in June. I've never been to the office. My office has been entirely on my laptop. So that's how people are seeing Slack now, as being their virtual office. And what do we also do? So the purposes, put it into clear 4 little silos to connect with others, share knowledge and experiences. Some people are only there to find the answers to questions, whereas other people love giving answers and other people want to see a mixture of the two. So we're also there to share knowledge. And again, not just about Slack, really about most topics people can think of, it's a space for conversing and learning. Always from learning, like we see a lot of, like on the developer side, we see a lot of people just pasting in their code, being like, something's going a bit wrong here, or this action and this API call that I need to see cannot be performed. You might have a look in. And for that, we also have Slack developers, so our actual internal colleagues. They're also quite active in the community. So always keep an eye out and be like, I don't know how they do it because I'm not very technical, but when they look at this wall of code, being able to be like, that bit's wrong. But maybe if there's some developers here, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then growing. So a lot of people are building on Slack, building their apps, but also at the same time, people are basically building out their virtual office space. So we have a lot of admins who are looking for best practices on how best to set up the structure of their Slack so that their colleagues feel at ease using it, but also hopefully enjoy using it and it feels like a comfortable tool. So to join, it is simply slackcommunity.com, not particularly difficult URL. And from here, we've got like some background information. So the community started, nearly 2 years ago. And then was mentioned that my colleague Elizabeth started, but like from that start date, every time I'm even talking to anybody who's wanting to join the community or people who ask for a bit more information, I'm always like really shocked that the number of members it has grown to now from 0 in 2019 March to now it's January 2021, about 10,000. I think it's either like 9,900 and something or like 10,002. So it's very much on the cusp, but give or take, there's about 10,000 members and quite distributed globally. So I'll show you in a second our first meetup in Berlin, but as it goes, I thought just from working with previous companies that perhaps it would be very US or North America centric, and that would be the main hub of communities, but it's actually US is maybe about US and Canada are maybe about 30%, but 70% is the rest of the world. And it's like, oh, unexpected, but quite interesting turnaround. So having a look at our first meetup in Berlin. Now, and you can see that like Terry's in an office there that looks perfect for this kind of event if there wasn't one little global problem. But yeah, so this is the first event that we had in Berlin. You can see there was people all in the same room together who didn't know each other, but it was a topic like the initial topics tend to be quite universal, just presenting as we are now what Slack is like, what people can expect from the community, and also like it's just what we like to have is very much networking and open casual events. Also, just you can see in some of the stuff when make you sick, as I said, I'm looking at my bedroom window at darkness and not the Brandenburg Gate. So yeah, 9,000 plus members. I went for the conservative estimate here, but it's certainly nearly 10,000. And we also have 110 volunteer leads. I think that it's actually about 116 now, but I have 3 new leads in the process. And to explain to you what that is, so it's like Terry, where people volunteer to lead chapters. And you can see that we have 90 chapters, and by chapters, it was originally set up that each city would be its own individual chapters. For example, like we're in the Baku chapter. This week I've been talking to potential leads for the London chapter and Munich chapter. And there was another recent chapter that we created. I think it was not in Rio. I think maybe Rio, it was another Brazilian city. But for example, there, and also like Lagos in Nigeria, we have chapters really all over the world. Now, of course, in the more virtual times, the city-based chapter structure isn't as necessary or isn't as necessary because everything is virtual now. But the hope is that in the future that hopefully we can go to different cities and meet up in real life. And yeah, so there's 40 plus countries. Mentioned this is the first meeting that we've had in Azerbaijan, which I'm really, really excited about. And I was saying to Terry yesterday, if only we could meet up in real life, and then maybe I'll go for lunch afterwards. I think we'd have a lovely time in Baku. But yeah, there's 40 plus countries. Again, I think it might be on the cusp of nearly 50. And you can see here where it's like represented quite a good swathe of chapters from across North America to Europe, also into Asia. I think actually the highest density of chapters is in India. But again, one of the things that's positive about this, well, not trying to put a positive spin on a global pandemic, but the virtual element again means that we can now go to each other's events and we're not really restricted to the city-based structure, to the city-based chapter structure. You can really go wherever you like. So meet up locally, or as you say, and now virtually. So here's just an example of some of our chapter leaders. I really like that more so than the map because I know these faces and I can see that we've got like some of our chapter leads in Rwanda, Rio, Nairobi, Udine, which is a city in northern Italy, and then Peshawar, like Tallinn in Estonia. This is on, like, again, lots of places in just seconds so I can see Nigeria, India, Pakistan. That is Canada, like just global countries, or global cities. But the idea being that, like with the virtual events, as I was kind of touching on in the previous slide, is I know that like not everything is going to be time zone or language comfortable for you, but if there is anything within a time zone, whether it be more technical or more casual, please feel very, very welcome to go. All of our events are totally free. They are all open to absolutely everybody. So if there's any topic that you see and you're like, oh, that actually time zone wise, that's not too bad, never hesitate to join. There's like, especially with this city-based chapter structure, I know that like sometimes people feel they're like, oh, but this isn't being held in Baku, for example. Don't worry, everything is virtual, and hopefully someday we will get to meet in person. Oh yeah, and just actually one thing here, bottom left, we're always looking for speakers. So if you want to talk about maybe something that you've built or something that maybe you've created your own company, or maybe you just like feel quite comfortable talking with others or want to gain that experience, please don't hesitate to reach out either to myself or Terry if you're interested in speaking at an event, especially locally and in local language. Like we're doing this in English largely because I'm an English speaker, so this is my fault. But for everybody else, like, please know speaking in your own local languages is very welcome and encouraged, because we just want you to feel comfortable and have an open platform for discussing things. Again, things are virtual and we shouldn't have to compromise on this. There's already enough compromising going on. So as I was saying, you're very welcome to join any chapters meetup anywhere across the world. Doesn't matter the topic, you're welcome. Like we see a lot of people, because there's like not, because it's like evening in India, we see a lot of people, if there's any morning events in EMEA, people get to show up, so we see like a good bit of crossover and vice versa. So don't worry about geographical boundaries. And we have a wide variety of speakers and topics. They said some people are very technical. Like we have upcoming webinar, I think being hosted from India, to do with socket mode. Again, so technical, I don't even know what it is, but I remember when it was being announced that a lot of people, developers, I could see them on camera being like, yeah, great, cool. So there's like things like that, very technical outside of my scope, but then there's also the more casual. So always like try and keep it diverse. And some of the upcoming ones is of course the technical meeting in Kolkata, and we also have another launch event which will be similar to this but in Oslo, and then there's another US one. But yeah, on slackcommunity.com you will see all 5 events. Actually, also one thing that I probably should have put a slide in, but I didn't, so you have to trust me on this, but the creator of Slack, so the CEO, Stuart Butterfield, is hosting an AMA, so an Ask Me Anything, specifically for the Slack platform community. Again, it's just on slackcommunity.com. But if you have any questions for Stuart, like we're trying to keep this open, as you can imagine, because it's him, there's a lot of questions coming in, but we're trying to keep, find the most relevant and pertinent questions for all of the attendees. That's again, totally free, totally open, and everybody is welcome to join. So here's where we see these virtual events. You can see people discussing things on Slack. I can see like a US, or no, Amsterdam-based event. The Amsterdam chapter, by the way, is one of those like incredibly active, very much always going chapters, and that's on the top right, headed by Alla Pavlova, and that's there. And again, you're always welcome. You can see us here as well, just so you can see the Slack workspace. So this is where we do a lot of our conversations about anything to do with Slack at all. anything at all. And if you join slackcommunity.com, you'll also be given an invitation to join this specific Slack workspace so you can talk directly with other people. And you can see some of our events here, like an AMA with the product design team. So meet up in Slack. If you want to join, I'll paste this link when I'm finished presenting to you. I'll paste that link in, but you're very welcome to join this workspace. So you can see we have like a lot of chat and a lot of things going on. Like one of the most popular channels, I'll show you this now, but with the warning or the caveat, I find this channel very, very North American because it is called social yelling, and it's where people speak in caps and everything is where people are shouting, and it's not just angry. Sometimes people are excited, but this is one of our most popular casual channels where people love to go. I find it even a stressful read. I like to go in and see what people are shouting about or yelling about, but like there's like, it's not just technical chat, there's like cats, there's API chat, and you can go in and shout and yell into the abyss anytime you like. But yeah, so that's in the workspace, and that's what any member is very welcome to join as well. To get active within the community, you know, we're all working from home. There can be things that are going to come up, whether it's like related to Slack or even if it's just like something that's more specific to your industry, because there's so many members within the community. They said about 10,000 people, give or take. If you're working on something, there's possibly somebody who has other experience relevant to your needs. And that's again the benefits of this virtual office space with a load of strangers, that you can put these questions out there. There's no guarantee of an answer, but at least somebody might be able to see it and hopefully help you. You can share your challenges and any solutions that you found. Sometimes things are not going to be exactly as you're advised on the technical support articles. Maybe you found a really clever workaround. Again, use this opportunity to share. We're all trying to do the best we can, as I said, in tough circumstances. So sharing challenges and creative solutions, that's always welcome. And connect with the Slack team. So aside from myself and Elizabeth, there are more people from Slack than just the two of us there yelling. But no, there's more people from the engineering team, from the developers team. There's really all the technical teams are quite active. And then we also have, like, for example, quite recently, we started partnering with the certification team. So one of the things that we offered to our members was a free Slack certification. Hopefully everybody is taken up at this point, but we will, like, even if you join now, this is something that we will probably do again in the very near future because it was popular. But it meant as well that we had an Ask Me Anything with the certification team and other teams. Like tomorrow, you know, Thursday, we will have, so that's the 14th of January, we'll have another Ask Me Anything with Alan Renwald, Alan Leenwald, who is the VP of products for any product-based questions. So we try to keep a lot of Slack employees active in the community, but also just there's some general people who'll be there to answer your questions at any time. And yeah, we try to give previews of Slack features and betas. Sometimes the engineering team will ask, like, is anybody interested in trying this out? Or maybe they'll ask if you have a specific system in place, and then they'd like you to try it. Again, we're always looking to see what the user-based feedback is to shape and mold the product. And interesting channels. So maybe Terry will be talking about this, but just know there's a Baku chapter, as I said, that city-based chapter model. So you'll be able to talk with other people who are located in Baku or perhaps have a connection to Baku, much like the chapters when we have virtual meetups. They are open channels. So even if there's another city that perhaps you're joining us in today, or another place that you're interested in or maybe moving to or thinking about, no harm in to join these chapter channels. It also means that you'll be updated when there's any events published for that chapter. And then just a few things, like, so ranging from the technical to more like things where people want to promote their own apps, like app marketing, and yeah, remote work tips. If you want some really, it's a lot of it is people being like, what nice thing can I buy to make my home more comfortable if I'm just going to be looking at my walls all day? But there's lots of good tips there as well. And then just more like tool and technical specific topics and channels, such as workflow builder. So that is a tool in Slack where people can build their own workflows. it's quite automatic, but if you've never used it before, maybe it's a good thing to play with. But also people can share their workflows. I'm like, I built this cool workflow. What do you think? Would you like to use it? So those are some channels. So with that, thank you very much for having me. I hope this was clear, but also at the same time, I know because I'm coming to you from Dublin, I might have my accent might be too strong for you, and maybe you prefer typing over and listening to me talking away. But please don't hesitate. You can find me in the Slack community. Just look for Neve. I don't believe there is another Neve, so I think you'll find me. But also through Terry. If there's anything, even on this Zoom chat, if you have questions coming up, don't hesitate to ping me or reach out because I really want to help you and get to know the local Baku community. So thank you for that. And back to you, Terry.
Thank you very much, Lee, for a great presentation and for detailed information about the Slack community chapters and what it presents us and which value that create for us. And I really think that this value is very important for the even countries like us, because in our region, we are the post-Soviet countries. The technical things, the innovation things, it's going not very fast. And the Slack community, I think, will be one of the things that will boost this process and will help our community to grow, actually. And we have some questions, and I also have some questions about our topic. So, how do you think, what are the best features of the Slack for startups mainly? I'm working mainly with the startups and the community. I think that will join us, mostly the startup founders and the startup guys. What do you think the best features for the startups on the Slack?
Okay, so to put it like some of these are on like different packages you can buy with Slack, but just generally speaking, the features, I'll go for like the technical and the more general. So on the technical side, I was just touching on it towards the end, workflow builder, just because especially we know like I find it more prominent now that I'm not in the office, but when I need to get something done, before when my previous comment, I could just go to somebody's desk and request it. Now you can't really do that. So rather than trying to find who that person is, you can use these workflows. So basically what they are is within, actually, you know what, I'll share my screen just so you can see what I'm talking about, but also, let's see, Slack, so here. So our workflow is, we've got all these channels. So for example, let me see, in our AMA channel, workflow builder, you'll see here at the bottom, there's this shortcut, and this will show you a workflow. Now, for example, we have an AMA coming up, as I said, with Stuart. So here, if I click here, what it'll do is it'll immediately put up this question box. So it's this automation that you can add. And what we also use is, I mean, this is used across Slack, but just some direct examples that I can think of. So whenever people want to ask questions in an AMA, or if people want to publish things on our global marketing calendar, and like that way we can reach out. We just need to put in a form, like filling out a form like this, and that's going to submit it, and then it'll automatically processed by the marketing team. And then another technical usage is like also one that I would use very regularly is when we have new people starting as chapter leaders. We ask them to sign contracts, you know, just the usual contract, like please be nice to your community, things like that. So when that contract comes in, I'm able to submit it. So not just like submitting a question, but I can also submit like the link that I have from Google Docs to the team. So that way it appears, it populates in their Google Docs. And recently, just one other example I can think of is I needed to get information from all the chapter leaders because I wanted to send a box of swag to everyone. So I wanted to get their addresses, but rather than like sending a message to each individual person, I was able to add a workflow to Slack where, again, it would automatically populate a Google Docs, but separate like all the things that I needed to give to the vendor. For example, the name, phone number, line of address, that kind of, like all the usual contact details. But again, it made it very simple for me that like I was able to get I think it was in the end like 50 or 60 people's name and addresses and contact details to send swag, rather than having to ask individually. I just needed to create the workflow and then like step back. The only thing I really had to do was remind people to use it. So yeah, I'm quite a fan of this workflow builder. And then other tools, we have BlockKit, which is another like technical tool. And what it allows you to do is basically, again, let me show you, but you have to, I had a lot of tabs open. So if I'm showing a lot of tabs, you're not allowed to judge. That's just how it is. So let me see if I can find a clearer tab. Yeah, okay. Let's go for here and go to BlockKit. And here's where you're able to, let me share the screen. Let's see. Where is, I'm gonna make sure you're able to see it before or that I pick the right window before you're overloaded with tabs. So let's see. I'll go back to this channel. No, this is where I've gotten a bit lost again because I have so many tabs and so many windows open. Is this sharing? I think it's not sharing this. New share. So now I think you're able to see BlockKit. And this is where what it does is like you're able to pick from these sections whether you want to add like a button or whether you want to add a date picker or checkboxes or radio options or some actions as well or dividers. And what it allows you to do is like, well, the example that I use it for most frequently is when I want to create an interactive newsletter within Slack. So here's an example of it. And what it allows me to do is like see, like I can get the payload, but everything here that's just built in. I just need to press the button and like add a checkbox, and you see this will add a checkbox at the bottom, and then I just edit it on the right hand side through the payload. So rather than me, as I told you very honestly, I'm not very technical. So of course, when I first saw this, I was very intimidated. But then once I saw that, like, okay, I just need to press the buttons, then I type in the words, not the text, not the like dividers, none of the coding side, and it just builds it out in blocks. So every stage that you want to add, it'll do it for you. So yeah, I was very intimidated by this tool at the start, but now I think it's a great way of creating like a professional company-wide communication. And there's like other reasons that people use, that's just the one that I use most for, and that you'll be able to track and add code and get checkboxes and present your events in a cool way. So that's one thing I really like. And then just on the other side of it, I think that having social channels, because we're in the remote world, and I think a lot of people here are working remotely, if not all of you working remotely as well, is that what I find people can do is just use Slack for the purposes of talking about work. But again, if you're not able to see your colleagues in real life, and that social interaction of going for a coffee or going for a walk outside when it's nice, just being able to chat to people or even going to someone's desk, having social channels. Like one channel that we had was like Dublin Fun, and it was like people posting silly things like memes and stuff related to Irish news. Like for example, there was an article yesterday that happened where we have a postal service that it's one of those, because the population is so small, that everybody kind of knows one another. So somebody sent a post to a woman in Cork, which is another city, and it said, to the German woman who has a load of cats near this small town. That kind of thing made the news because of course people knew exactly who the post was for, and it arrived and she was like, oh, I was kind of surprised, but I do have a lot of cats. Things like that. So we have like these fun social channels so that people don't, like, it doesn't feel that you're just spending all your day. Like I spend all day long at my computer, even when work is finished. Like honestly, because we're in lockdown again, I'm still at my computer but on Netflix. But like having that, so you really would miss that social element of work if there weren't just channels that people could be more jokey or fun or humorous, or just we'd have to call it like water cooler chat, just where people can chat like normal. Yeah,
Great.
Terry.
Thank you for the answer. So I just want you to talk about the corporative part of the Slack. So the corporative, the big companies, the corporates in here also right now working from home and remotely. So what do you think? What are the main comparative advantages in comparison with the other tools of Slack, mainly for corporates?
Yeah, I think it's going to be some of the functionality based around the App Store. So that way, like your entire, what you call it, like your app stack, for the most part, I think just because Slack has been around for so long and is so popular for so long, is that there's a lot of options to integrate with all of the most popular and common tools. So that's one good advantage. And I don't want to run down or say anything negative about any competitor tool, because I think they're all great, you know. So you're going to have a preference for Slack, but it is whatever feels comfortable for you. But I think, yeah, the ease of use, and it's also like just the familiarity that people have with Slack, is that it's a, I think it, because it reminds me of like chat rooms that I use, like social stuff, my own, like browsing the internet. So like it's just a comfortable, familiar feeling. The learning curve seems to be quite small or quite short, in that people like, of course, some of the more technical stuff like blockade and that's more advanced, but being able to just have like the easier side where you can put somebody down, and the most like complicated thing that they need to learn how to do is how to send a GIF. Like that is a nice way of getting people, they're familiar with the tool, and one of the main actions that they can take is to send funny memes to each other. So it just like, I think the usability of Slack is one of its main selling points. That's why I think that you can disagree. You might find something else is different.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Thank you for the answer. So we have questions from our audience from Facebook Live and from the Zoom. So the first question is specific, and it's actually based on your opinion. Just give you advice how to stay concentrated on the work while you are on the remote. So
Yeah, I would love to pretend that I'm like, oh yeah, productivity machine, but absolutely not. And even like here, because the weather is so bad, it's not even like I can go for a walk. But I can tell you just like some of the things that I do to make my day go better is to have many and frequent breaks. So like I always have my, well, my personal preference, I have my, I don't know if you can even see it yet, but my trustworthy Kindle to hand at all times, just like if I'm feeling that I don't want to really look at work stuff, or I don't like sick of the internet, like I just want to read my book, just something to like to distract the mind for a while. And also it's a funny convenience. So I live with a flatmate, and him and I used to work together, so we're able to like have coffee during the day or tea and talk about people that we know. That sort of things we're able to be like, oh, is that what's happening there? So like still being able to talk to another human. But yeah, I'd love to pretend that like I just go for a walk or I go for a 5K run. I definitely don't. I find like, I find that like especially during all this pandemic stuff, it is harder to concentrate on things, because like anytime, like even if you just like click off your work stuff to look at the news, we're being bombarded with a lot of terrible news. So like it just finds that like concentration isn't something that's the like, easiest to do now. So rather than having a problem with yourself, or just be like, I'm coping, doing my best. Sometimes I need to look at some pictures of cats or puppies. Other times I just need to not look at work and look at my book. Just opt out, go for a tea.
great, super. So the next question, and I think the last question, is more about the Slack, not the Slack community. It's also
Mhm.
so it could be based on your opinion. So what will be the add value of Salesforce to Slack
Mm.
customers, to Slack customers after possible acquisition process?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that's probably going to come up, and this is speculation on my side, because do know that like when it was announced globally about the acquisition, that was kind of the first I'd heard of it as well, because you know these are big business decisions with big business implications. So I'd seen speculation, but people were asking me, and I was like, I'll be honest, don't know. But my guess, so purely my guess, is that like one of the first things that people will see is the much better integrations with existing Salesforce, their portfolio of products. So there's other acquisitions that they had in more recent years, like Tableau, and Tableau is one, and another is MuleSoft. And there's already integrations, but I think if everything is part of the one ecosystem, it's going to clearly become a lot more user friendly and like all within the one interface, not just integrated through buttons. But I'm guessing that we're going to see like more of each company's features within each other's products rather than just integration. As I said, that is speculation. Apart from that, I think some things that we'll be able to see is like the iteration on either new features or the improvement of existing features, because like Salesforce is huge. Like it really is a huge company, and there's thousands of people and thousands of engineers. So I think like when it comes to the rollout of new features or improving existing ones, just like by sheer volume of people that are there, I think that's things that will immediately or quickly enough start seeing as being like added value, that like this is going to be good for customers. As it goes, one of the things that we're told internally, and that I can even see speculated on in newspapers globally, is that I don't think there's going to be a huge change. Can't promise that, but like just going based on other acquisitions, so namely like Tableau and MuleSoft, they're still very separate companies, but it just means that more so on the background and internally on the business side, there's more collaboration together. But I think on the user side, like I know some people like really love Slack, some people might really love Salesforce, they might love like their own particular product, but I don't think you get forced into using any of the other products. I think it'll be, this is what you like and you don't want to use that, no obligation, you stick with that, and that's entirely up to you. But again, speculation.
Thank you for the detailed answers to the questions. It was really great, and thank you for joining us, and thank you guys for joining us and watching us. So this was the first ever Slack community event in Baku, and I think next events will be even more. I think will be better because we will pick some best speakers from the Slack with the help of Nif, of course. She is also helping me in this process. I'm really grateful to you for that. Yeah. So thank you very much. And Nif, do you want to add finally something for Azerbaijani audience?
Yeah, guys, I just can't express, as I said, I'm so delighted to be with you, and I wish it were in person and that we could start networking and growing this together. I really hope that you found this event useful or interesting, but you know, it's the first event. Maybe you want a different contact, or if you have any ideas, please do, as I said, reach out to me, reach out to Terry in particular, because he's your local chapter leader, but never hesitate to ask, because the worst that can happen is I say no. Maybe you want to talk about one specific topic and I don't know anybody in Slack to be available to speak at it. That can happen, but if not, I mean, chapters are very open. We're really interested in hearing about other people, other experiences, not particularly technical or as technical as you want. So if there's anything you would like to see, if there's any ideas that you have, or even like strategies, like for example, with the Tbilisi chapter, the chapter leader is thinking of having a wine tasting event. I think that's a brilliant idea. No idea how she's going to execute it, but like, this is just an idea that somebody had and was like, yeah, why don't we try it? What's the worst that happen is we try. If things go wrong, well, you know, fine, so be it. So please do like join, or even if you don't want to join the chapter or you don't want to join the community, that's totally fine. But please feel welcome, really, really welcome to share your ideas, because like Terry put it quite succinctly, we want to make sure that like developers or people building or just people with general interest in Slack can improve their skills in Baku and across Azerbaijan. So if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you for having me, Terry, and Sana as well.
Thank you
Thank you,
too
guys.
for joining us. Thank you guys. See you at our next event. Thank you for joining.